While I'm waiting on this call that I'm hoping comes today or tomorrow, and I wrapped up our today's episode for Crypto Talk Radio, found at cryptotalkradio.net, broadcast out through all major platforms. Please do spread the word. I I was inspired. There was some chatterings, some musings, some miserings, some practical behaviors that occurred on social media, and it inspired me to put up an episode about what's happening. And it's kind of two part, but I'm going to focus on the one I think is more pertinent and relevant to the vast majority of those listening to this episode. And it has to do with influencing. And when I say influencing, I'm saying the definition of influencer, but also the influence of people as they're trading cryptocurrency. One of the listeners of the show, he listens on the main podcast, and I've chatted with him on a couple of occasions, and he's actually a supporter, and I'm very grateful for him. But he brought to attention directly, straight said, I'm influenced. I love what you do. I want to help support and keep you doing what you're doing because I enjoy what you're doing. And it got me stepping back and thinking, because the simple definition of an influencer is someone who, via whatever action or inaction that they take, has some sort of influential effect on someone else, whether they take action or not, or they're simply enjoying the conversation, or they're deciding things and they need that guidance, or perhaps it's educational in nature and they take that from. And so if I simplify that down, when I see on social media people that are hampering on people like Del Rug Pull, aka Del Crypto, or some of the others, it got me very clearly trying to delineate, because I think we've convoluted the two. When I say we, I'm talking about the crypto business. We've convoluted the two. And the reason they're convoluted is because some of these people are very good at what they do. And when I say good at what they do, I'm talking about what they do on a regular basis, not necessarily why. So there are people out there, Del Rug Pull's one I just called out. He has openly said on multiple occasions that he's going to do what he feels like doing, which is his right. And what he currently does, somehow he got a level of influence that's inexplicable to me. He has projects, crypto projects, and I suspect that there's cultural things happening here. I suspect that what's happening is you get people from international shores who then just jump on whatever seems popular from some other crypto, and they just follow the bandwagon. I think there's a lot of that. And as a result, they say, well, Del Crypto is involved with that, so he must be good, so we're just going to follow here, deep, deep, deep. Instead of what I want, which is you spin up and you identify what you're trying to do. You build it like a business. You make your website stand out in a crowd. You don't go to Telescam immediately. You go to Reddit. You go to Medium. You build out strong framework. You think through the contracts so you don't need to do migrations. Like, I'm more of a traditionalist in that sense. I expect that the project is going to use business knowledge and savvy to build it out to where it's robust. Instead, it's more spin it up, hop on Del Rug Pull's nuts or whatever, and have him shill it. And for whatever reason, he has a platform, despite that guy in the MA saying, "You canceled, bro." And I said, no, he's not. He's not going to be canceled by you or anybody else, because people are still listening to him. So he has influence. He hits the definition of an influencer. But then you take somebody like Kim Kardashian, right? She was excessively shilling Ethereum Max. Ethereum Max was arguably the textbook, if we were to create crypto textbooks, one of the cryptos to learn from rug pulls as a definition was Ethereum Max. It fit the bona fide definition of a rug pull, not by the devs, but by what happened with these celebrities that were excessively shilling it to the moon. I remember the very first time that we saw, okay, we've got what's going on here. This thing is great. This thing's amazing. I remember the first time that happened. And then it was like, okay, but tell me more about it. She went to the extreme of and of course she's an Instagram master. She's like the queen, of Instagram. She went to the extreme of just basically posting half naked photos, shilling this thing when it first dropped. I remember this happening. And I'm struggling trying to understand, like, why, what does this thing do? And from what I can understand, and I'm veering a little bit into this because it's important to understand what got us to this point. From what I understood, this Ethereum Max was pitched as the next big thing behind Ethereum. There's another token that's coming soon, allegedly, called PulseX. And it does a similar thing, saying, we are going to be another thing and we're going to be shaking the world up. The difference is that PulseX, it comes across as we're actually helping Ethereum because we're taking some of the load off. Under no circumstances does it present as we're going to replace Ethereum in any of its messaging, like Ethereum Max was doing during this whole shill period. I sat back and watched because the moment I saw that Cardassian was involved, I knew that there was going to be something going on, and I didn't want to be in that. From a risk aversion perspective, it wasn't going to work for me, brother. So I said, I don't trust this. I'm not confident in it. I think there's going to be problems with this. Floyd Mayweather got on board at one point with essentially shilling it, and things happen over time. Next thing I know, this business with Ethereum Max, I see it tanks. I assume it was just, loss of interest. Turns out that some of these shillers, and we're talking real shillers, basically just dumped on it. They basically just sold out of the project, took the money and ran. And I'm like, okay, that's not unexpected because you had a bunch of shilling going on in the picture and it didn't make any sense. So then it gets on mainstream news that, these celebs and they're shilling these projects and then they dumped on it and it's this whole big fiasco. This was not as big as something like Squid Game. It wasn't anywhere close in scope. If you were to look at Ethereum Max today, it went to a V2. I'm pretty sure that's true. And the V2 is nowhere near what the initial pump was doing. So people got smart about it. But because Cardassian essentially was selling ass along with convincing people to do this, and I apologize, but that's what it is, a bunch of people got wrecked on this. And that's not good. Because when you have something, you might have a project that actually otherwise it could be good with the right leadership. And the reason I'm talking this through is because my frustration with these tokens is so many of them, they look like they're actually decent projects, but because they lean heavily on shillers, we end up essentially trashing because they don't believe they can succeed on their own. And so my frustration is just the incessant rush towards shillers instead of succeeding on one's own, which I think is a better avenue, especially when you have people using their influence, there's that word again, to change people's minds about whether a project's legit or not. And as you've heard me say, I can think something might be, but I need you to look at it because you might see something different than I. I can think something is a good project. I might get it wrong. And in some cases, I may or may not hold a bag, but I never hold a big bag because I don't want to be influenced by profit drive. So like with Libero, which I've covered a couple times, the amount of money I have is locked in the bank and it's all profit. It's all surplus. I have nothing to lose with it. At the same time, I recognize its risk. And I will gladly tell you, as I've repeatedly said, when this is a high risk and I don't recommend that somebody do something here so that people understand it's not up to me what you do or how you do it. I just want you to be careful, whatever you decide to do. So then when I look at this business with these influencers, and by influencers, I'm broadening the scope, but I look specifically into the shiller type influencers, the ones that are actively telling you to buy a project. Those are a subset of influencers I'll never support. You will never hear me support those that, from my perspective, they're trying to convince you to buy into a project, not with any fundamentals, but more with a gut feeling type of treatment when they cover it, when they talk about it. There's no fundamental to what they're saying. That doesn't mean that they're wrong, but I think there should be, at all points, more structure to what they do, and there's not. But on the other side, you have a different category of influencers. This category of influencers has their own beliefs and their own strategy and their own confidence in their portfolio. And they should. They should feel like what they want to do with the way they trade, as long as they're transparent about it, should persist. They should always be able to do what they want to do. I think what's started to happen, based on recent things I've seen, I believe what's starting to happen is we're getting situations where, because of their influence, some influencers possibly are changing their strategy, or they're deviating from their normal strategy in order to appease the token project. I don't think that's the right answer either. Here's what I'm saying. If you're the kind of influencer where you are working with the token project in order to, increase awareness or, get people on the board or whatever it is, that's a different thing than if you're an influencer simply because you're providing coverage across a variety of different things, as I do. I have no partnership with any token. The reasons are varied, but I have no partnership with any token. I don't expect necessarily to have a partnership with any token. Could that change? Sure. If it did, I would tell you. As it stands, I have no partnership with any token. I cover a diversity of them. And here's the thing. If I ever were to create a partnership with any token, not only would I inform you of it, but I would also be in complete control of the parameters of that arrangement, such that I don't change the way I deliver my messaging. Because I'm not willing to change the way I deliver my messaging, it is a strong reason why I don't have any partnerships with any token. Because many tokens want you to be their message deliverer. They want you to tell the message how they want you to do it. No problem. I'm not necessarily willing to do that, because I think you lose your own identity, and losing your own identity as an independent source of information, for me, is unacceptable. So I see these recent interactions, and I'm observing that, with certain influencers, they have partnerships with their projects, and they have to adjust their messaging contrary to the way they normally think and the way they normally believe and the way they normally invest. I don't support this. I understand why it's a thing. I don't support this, but that's what they're doing. And it gets me thinking, is that really the way that we want the crypto business to be? That people are now, it goes like to this whole business of sticking stuff in people's arms, right? We assume that just because the president goes up and says a thing, everybody should just do it. Just because, with no real consideration for medical situations or anything else, just groupthink, just bandwagonism. I don't know that I support that. And when I see that that's happened, and if I were in that particular influencer's shoes, I would have told that crypto to kick rocks, and I would not have used that verbiage, but I would tell them to kick rocks, not because I didn't want to help, but here's the thing. If the influencer was compensated for the coverage that they do, I would never allow, as part of the agreement, them to dictate what I say or how I strategize. The flip on this is that the token project, may resonate that the messaging may be harmful based on the way they want to do it. That's fine, but ultimately, everybody should be free to trade the way they want to trade, as long as it's understood that the influencer has his or her own ability to do it the way they're going to do it, and the project has every right to even say, this is the way we work if you're going to be in this thing, and go to the extreme, as you heard me talk about on other projects, that you maybe even enforce it in the contract. Like, if you have a certain thing you want your project to do or maintain or persist, why would you not write that into the contract? I don't agree that the message should be, we're just going to cross our fingers and hope that people have the best intentions. I know that sounds cynical, but the truth is, people are profit driven in crypto. As sad as that is, people are profit driven in crypto. as long as people are profit driven in crypto, certain other philosophies are incompatible with that stance. So I would rather we get smart about our so-called smart contracts to enforce the principles that you want, just like a bank would do. A bank limits how much you can withdraw every day from the ATM. They don't limit how much you can withdraw when you walk in, but when you go to certain levels, there are certain other hoops they put you through. They have protocols and processes built into the way they do it. They don't just trust you that you're only going to withdraw $500 at a time, because they know people are not, they're going to violate that trust, and that would cause a harm to all the other holders. So what I'm saying is, if anybody, I'm pretty sure none of the influencers, or very few of them, I should say, are listening to this message. But I'll say this. Certainly there's no shillers, but if there's any regular influencer, and by which I say regular influencer, I'm talking anybody that provides basic coverage. You're not telling anybody to buy a thing. You're not telling anybody to invest in a thing. You're not telling anybody what to do. You're just providing basic coverage, whether you were compensated for it or not. I would say this. I understand the need to manage relationships. I understand the need to persist relationships, especially when you have an agreement to do so. However, I do also agree that every individual, I almost cussed right there, believe it or not, every individual should be able to have their own voice regardless of anything else. How you do what you do is what you do and how you do it. And I don't think anybody else should try to dictate how you communicate or transmit that message down below. If there's something that they want understood from their investors, I believe that they should take the time to put that on their website so that the investor can go and look at it for themselves, as opposed to assuming that somebody's going to conform to your way of thinking. And I would not make the faulty assumption that just because you pitch a message in your telescam, which is akin to a cult in a way, that this room of people has this understanding and you're not with us. That's cult mentality. I don't agree with or support anybody who is a basic influencer being required to, or even asked to, conform to a thought process that does not conform to their own. I believe everybody who trades this should be able to do your own thing, because here's the problem. If you get into this groove where we are conforming people to a certain thought process or methodology, how is that any different from cults? Truly. And cults are not what we want, as we've learned now, hopefully, with Saitama. It's not the right answer. It's never been the right answer. I'm going to say this, and I'll close. Anybody who's hearing this and happens to know who I'm referring to or what I'm referring to in project, I'm going to say this, and guess what? I don't have a partnership with your project. I have no allegiance to any specific token, and I am not beholden to anyone else other than myself. It's just me, myself, and I, like the song says. Here's the truth, folks. Every individual should be allowed to do whatever they want, almost cussed, want to do, how they want to do it for their own strategy. And if you are coming back and you're trying to impose a cult mentality of do what we tell you to do, the way we tell you to do it, and talk to people the way we tell you to talk to them, and all of this crap, I will call you out for what it is, which is a cult at that point. This isn't to say you can't have your, quote, values or, quote, principles or, quote, beliefs. I am in full support of it. But you need to understand that individuals have their own right to have contradictory beliefs and principles and values. And you, token project, who are nothing more than numbers on a blockchain, they're your boss. If they tell you, F you, I'm trying really hard not to swear here, F you, I will do what I'm going to do with your project, you will, frankly, shut up and deal with it. Because honestly, there's really nothing you can do about it other than blacklist wallet, and that's assuming you know their wallet address. Other than that, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. So I suggest you sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, because you're going to have people who invest in your project who have different motivations than your faulty beliefs of cult mentality. If you don't want the cult mentality, maybe you shouldn't go to garbage telescam and create that cult mentality. Maybe you should get back to a world that's realistic. I had this conversation, a similar conversation, with the Dream Token, the Dream Chain they call themselves now, who swore up and down that the right answer for trading is that we should lock all trading in cryptocurrency like we do the, almost cussed, freaking stock market, and just ban people from doing any trading outside of bankers' hours. Like that makes any freaking sense to anybody outside of the crypto bubble. It doesn't. Only to have the CEO of Robinhood, who finally grew a pair, come out and say, no, the future is 24/7 trading and we're going to make that happen. Now, yes, Dream, I will go because I tried to warn you that's what was coming and you didn't listen to me. Dream Token's not who I'm referring to with my extended rant at the beginning, but it's an example of these tokens that get too big of a head trying to dictate terms to people and tell people how they're supposed to do their cryptocurrency. And frankly, it's pissing me off because I'm tired of seeing it over and over again when these tokens don't understand. The people investing in your project are your boss. And I'd say to the investors, you guys need to step up and tell the tokens, you will not dictate to me how I invest your token or not. I will do as I please, whether you like it or not. You can't stop it because you don't know what my wallet address is. So that's the beauty of cryptocurrency. I can choose to buy and sell and day trade, or just frankly, dump on your project all I care to, and there's not a thing you can do about it except take it. So you better learn to love it and work with it and simply communicate to your investors. This is a real thing. This is normal. That's why every token follows the same pattern. If you really are pissed off about it, make your smart contracts smarter and manage those people. Learn how to manage those projects. As I've invited many times, and the token in question that I'm talking about, who I haven't named yet, I actually did coverage on them, and I invited them, and they ignored me. If they had listened to me, I could have warned them that this was going to be a real thing because their chart has followed the same pump and dump behavior that they're so pissed about, and they get their panties in a bunch. And the truth is, I could have warned them that was a thing, and I could have warned them that maybe your smart contract, since now, fast forward, they're doing a migration, they could have taken the time with my suggestions to optimize the smart contract to manage those types of transactions and to actually enforce your principles and values. That way you could do something about it, and then you don't have to treat one of your influencers the way that you did. And I'm saying that. I'm not speaking for him. I'm offended that I even hear of such a absolute nonsense, unacceptable treatment. And this goes additionally, and this one I will name, even though it's unrelated, but somewhat related, with Satama and those jokers attacking every single YouTuber that covers them for months. And then all of a sudden, when they're trying to get on OKX, now they're all pissed off because none of the YouTubers are covering the damn thing. I go and provide coverage. I don't get a thank you from any one of them. I provided coverage with instructions. But I also said, it ain't going to do no damn good. It's still going to go down. People ignore me. What happened? Gets on OKX and nothing happens. Why? Because it's obvious. All I'm saying, folks, is too many of these tokens are getting a big head about their stance, and they're not listening. They're not listening to people trying to help them. And they're assuming that what they're doing is the right answer. What they do within the contract confines is their business, and you can free do that. But when we're trying to help them, when I say we, I'm talking to anybody with a platform at this point. When we're trying to help them and they don't listen, or they come back with this nonsense about what an influencer said about their own trading strategy, I'm sorry, at that point it's crossed the line, and I'll call it out for what it is. So that I just broke down is the primary reason, not only reason, but the primary reason I am not aligned or alleged to any token project, because none of them want the smoke, because they hear it. They hear me say it. You're not going to conform me to anything. You're not going to require me to say anything in your favor as a shill. You're not going to censor anything I say, and you're going to take the feedback I give, good, bad, or indifferent. And your job is to actually act on the bad feedback. If you don't, it is what it is. But it's not going to change that I'm giving the bad feedback. So, for the influencer in question, I apologize that happened, because I believe everybody should have the right to do what they want to do, because that's the beauty of cryptocurrency, is freedom, isn't it? And I think we deviated from the intent of cryptocurrency when we allow inept, incompetent, and arguably short-sighted token projects to try to dish out orders when they're doing things contrary to the way people think. And they're trying to force people into a certain groove that's incompatible with the real world outside the crypto bubble. This interaction is the crypto bubble 101. It's them thinking they run the show when they don't. Their investors are their boss. And community, anybody listening to this message, until we all collectively get to the point that we're starting to tell these projects, they work for us, we are their boss, they're never going to change. So you're either going to just keep dealing with it with no Vaseline, as Ice Cube would say, or at some point I can get, ideally with my platform and hopefully others, on the ball where we start corralling these projects, forcing them to understand that simple truth. We are their boss, not the other way around. They don't call the shots. They are deferential to us. If they don't like it, too bad, because they can't block contract addresses and wallet addresses that they don't know about. So we will do as we please, whether that's buy it or sell it or dump it or hold it or trade it. It's not up to them what we do with our money. It's up to us. And they sit back and shut up and deal with it, or they fix their contract and actually take the time to write the contract correctly so that it conforms with whatever arbitrary values that they want to impose on investors. And by the way, their website should also have those same values imposed, including ideally a video with their face and their name and their contact talking about those values to investors, so that investors don't have to guess that, oh, I did something wrong. They're actively promoting, this is the way we want you to do it. Still understanding that they have no sway if the investors choose to ignore that, because they're going to ignore that. Guess what, Fantasyland? When you get on exchanges, I promise you, none of them give a crap about your values or principles. If they want to pump and dump you, they're going to pump and dump you. If they're going to short you, they're going to short you. If you want to day trade you, they're going to day trade you. And if they want to abandon you, they're going to abandon you. Deal with it, as Batista said. But guys and ladies, I can't do it alone. I can't message this alone. I need everyone in the crypto community, period, point blank, no matter what level you are, no matter how rich or not rich, it doesn't matter. It's not going to get better until the community at large starts telling these crypto projects they don't run the show. Investors are their boss. They deal with what we tell them, not the other way around. The more you allow them to bully, the worse it's going to get. And by the way, the easier it is to create scams, because they know you're gullible and will do whatever you want. No, that's not the way it works, brother. So that's my impassioned plea. I'm going to stick with it. Nobody's going to change my mind on that. However, you're free to leave any comments, questions, suggestions, or feedback below or at cryptotalkradio.net to discuss the subject and any token project listening to this. You heard me, or you should have. I want the smoke. It's easy to get on the show, and I don't charge. Just understand, by the time it's done, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm not going to let you run roughshod. I welcome people on the show to talk it out, and I will have that to try to help you. You're not going to dictate to me, because I'm an investor. You work for me, period, point blank. Beyond that, we'll see what happens with this situation. I will continue to monitor it off to the side. No, I'm not going to give a name, because I think all parties involved know who I'm referring to. Given the timing of the situation, I'm not going to say anything else, except that I'm really frustrated that we're still at the situation where many of these tokens are getting a big head and they don't understand their place in who's the boss on these types of things.